Hello, beautiful people. Today is March 18th. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about firearms legislation. H.R. 45, the FIND Act, says to amend Title 41 United States Code to prohibit the federal government from entering into contracts with an entity that discriminates against the firearm and ammunition industry and for other purposes. This comes to us from Jack Bergman, who's a Republican out of Michigan. So, to amend 41 to prohibit the federal government from entering into contracts with an entity that discriminates against the firearm and ammunition industry. Literally what it sounds like. No contractors. We cannot work with any contractors. All contractors, whether they're gun related or not, must express in writing that they do not hold an opinion nor refuse to work with anyone in the firearm industry, because we know they love their firearms more than anything. Children, not as important. Nope. Feeding children? Nope. No, just make sure you don't touch my guns. But no, we don't need to feed children. That's up to their parents. They should be doing it themselves. Get it off your butt and get a job. H.R. 1740, to improve the procedures of the National Instant Criminal Background Check System in the case of firearm transfers by federally licensed firearm importers, manufacturers, and dealers before the completion of the related criminal background check, and to provide for annual reports on default firearm transfers. So this is brought to us by Bradley Scott Schneider, Democrat out of Illinois. So they want to make the National Instant Crime Background Check easier to work, make it go faster. We just want to get, they want to get the guns to the people faster, I guess. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and share. If we want to hold our Congress accountable, we need to know what they're doing. And I would like to spread that information to all of you. Okay, next one is H.R. 1097, Secure Firearms Storage Act. Again, brought to us by Bradley Scott Schneider, Democrat out of Illinois. So, federally licensed firearms, it has to do with federally licensed firearms importers, manufacturers, and dealers with respect to securing their firearms inventory, business records, and business premises while they're closed. So, while they're closed, this bill would expect them to secure all of the guns with a steel rod 1/4 inch thick through the space between the trigger guard and the frame, with the steel rod secured by a hardened steel lock with a shackle. The shackle has to be protected or shielded from a bolt cutter. The rod has to be anchored to prevent it from being removed from the premises. Or it has to be stored, they all have to be stored in a locked fireproof safe. If they're or locked in a gun cabinet, if the gun cabinet is not steel, each firearm has to have the hardened steel rod, 1/4 inch thick, protected or shielded from a bolt cutter and anchored to prevent removal from the premises, or a locked vault. That's the firearms part. Paper record storage. Paper records of business inventory and firearm transactions needs to be in secure locations such as a locked fireproof safe or a locked vault. Additional security measures. The Attorney General may require additional security, such as requirements relating to the use of alarm and security camera systems, site hardening, measures to secure any electronic record of the business inventory and firearm transactions of and other dispositions of firearms by the licensee, and other measures necessary to reduce the risk of theft at the business premises for a licensee. The penalty, if you don't do this, first violation is civil penalty, $1,000 to $10,000. Second violation, they shall suspend the license issued. They shall suspend the license issued because of violation and may subject the licensee to a civil penalty in an amount provided in the earlier clause. In the case of the third violation, revoke the license and the licensee gets a civil penalty. So, next on the firearms list, H.R. 1773 to amend Chapter 44 of Title 18 United States Code to enhance penalties for theft of a firearm from a federal firearms licensee. This comes to us from John Rutherford, who's a Republican out of Florida. I look forward to reading the text on this one, but then I would love to hear what you have to say also. We want to make guns safer, I guess. Not safer from hurting other people, but safer from being stolen. I guess keep them from being stolen. Yeah, okay. H.R. 129, Abolish the ATF Act. This came from Lauren Boebert, Republican out of Colorado, and it's exactly what it says. I've seen records that show the right has been trying to do this for at least as far back as 2014. They've been trying to get rid of the ATF. Yeah. So the next one goes well with that, HR 563, which is No Retaining Every Gun in a System That Restricts Your Rights Act. This comes from Michael Cloud, who's a Republican out of Texas. This bill modifies the retention requirements for firearms transaction records of federal firearms licensees when they go out of business. Current law generally requires the federal firearms licensee to go out of business to deliver their firearm transaction records to the ATF. Then the bill requires that the ATF destroy all of the out of business records it has collected from business that went out of the business that closed. So if there's no ATF, I guess they're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. I don't know. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on these bills. And until next time, thank you for watching all the way through and have a day that matters.